Hello. Hello. Welcome to Dan Allen's Views of Wrestling. And instead of doing a topic or to apologize for waiting so late to upload my latest episode, instead of doing anything like that, first, I'm gonna say that, if people out there that hear me on Spreaker, and by the way, I have 9 listens, so thank you to people who helped me go from 5 within 9 in, say, 4 or 5 days, which, quite honestly, I wasn't expecting that, because I wasn't very sure if what I spoke about or the way I spoke was of any interest, so thank you for that. What I will be saying here is, instead of being sporadic or trying to think of a topic to talk about, well, I said the other day I was going to keep 83 weeks, or Raw versus Nitro, as I like to call it, strictly to weekends. But I just realized something, and I think it's very important for y'all to know. Views of Wrestling should really be a show talking about Raw, SmackDown, Impact Wrestling, MLW, Fusion on Friday nights, along with New Japan. It should be those shows, things that we watch on TV, or shows that we watch on the WWE Network. It shouldn't be just past shows. So I cannot really think of a name that would be best suited. But what I will say is, on Spreaker, you can create more than one show. And for me personally, I think it's important to... Conrad Thompson and many people here on Twitter listen to his podcast like 83 Weeks with Eric Bischoff on Westwood One, and at one time he was doing What Happened When Monday, and that was the MLW radio network, and he was also doing What Happened When, not What Happened When, but something Russell with Bruce Pritchard. And like I told Tony Schiavone, a lot of their What Happened When Monday videos are excuse me, I hate doing that. A lot of those videos given me an idea of what to talk about from a podcast. I said thank you, because it can be very difficult, especially if you listen to other podcasts out there. It can be difficult to know what to talk about. But I think this is different in being that, not to sound like woe is me, no. This is woe is not me, because this is a blessing. Whereas I cannot interview people that I want to interview, what I can do is interview people I know personally, and if by chance or by opportunity get to meet anybody famous, then I can learn from that one interview how different I can be. Lillian Garcia, former WWE ring announcer on here on Spreaker. I'm not sure how different she does it because she started this on After Buzz TV. And then she went on to Podcast One, and then that Podcast One came here on Spreaker and SoundCloud. So I'm not really sure how different it is being here on Spreaker, but most of her entire interview style was actually what I was going to go through, and that was asking people about their childhood. I don't exactly know how to be different, but these are people that I know and are not famous. I was going to try to see what I can do to see if it's interesting to anybody. And I don't mean, and I hope, well, I pray that I don't sound like I'm talking down to anybody. But, I know how sometimes fans like myself like to hear stories about wrestlers, or from wrestlers' stories, or like, for instance, a basketball player or a football player or a baseball player. Those are the interviews I would like to hear. So I'm hoping that y'all like me talking to people I know personally, if they would agree to be my guest. I know that I don't think I should do this before it's time to talk, so I'm just going to say this. I do have one person who is going to come in the future, and I'm not going to say anything about the guest. I'm going to share that with y'all when it's time to interview the person. What I will say is how I know this person. It's my brother. And there's so many things we can learn when we interview people, or when we sit down to talk to people. So many things we can learn about life and how different things are than what we might have thought before. This is kind of controversial to a lot of people because of what happened with I believe the person's name was Trayvon Martin. So a lot of people are upset at police officers in general. So talking about any form of police work, whether it's patrolling the streets, like for instance the police department, a lot of people don't want to hear that. So I know this is kind of controversial, but one of the things that I would like for him to talk about, because real life stories are interesting. One thing I would ask him to talk about would be his experience as a hospital security guard. So that's what I mean by trying to create an interview style. And I know it's pretty much like William Garcia, except this is a regular Joe Blow, and he is not in the public eye in any way. So if this was a celebrity, I would try to be very different. Like, just sticking to how they got into the business they're in. That way I would be doing it differently than what somebody like Lillian Garcia does. Where instead of almost doing like a copycat thing, I'd be starting off the interview talking about how they got started or their earliest memories of being their earliest exposure to what they're in. So that's what I hope to do in the future. But for right now, because of not having the ability to drive, so I can't meet people. I can't. So right now, in the middle of all of this, I can talk to people that I know and ask them how they feel about sharing their story, about sharing their experiences. And started off with my brother in the future. Anybody who has heard me, Audio Boom has heard Mom and my dad share their experiences. I really, though there's not a lot of people that I can think of interviewing, people that I know personally, because there's some people that really, it's hard for me to talk to them because of how intimidating I find them to be. But for the people that I can talk to, I will do the interviews, and it will be here on Views of Wrestling. What I would do, because there's a lot of the people that I know of, are not fans of wrestling, so I'd have to do an opinion. I'd have to talk about my opinions. Then I would have to let them know that I'm finished and we could start with the interview. That's what I would do in the future. If anybody would agree to be my guest. I'll ask it now. Because I would talk about Raw versus Nitro that's my first topic. That's my first series. I'm going to talk about that on this new show that I have. I don't want it to just be, I don't want to end it with that series because there's so much more topics to talk about, for instance, the invasion angle, which might have been started before WCW was even announced that they were bought out. So because of that, I'm gonna do those, and the reason I'm keeping the pay-per-view show instead of deleting that show is because I want to keep it separate from this podcast. I want to do every show that I do. I want it to be specific. I don't want it to be different than another podcast. So, or from another podcast I'm already doing. So, because of that, I'm gonna do Views of Wrestling, where I talk about We'll talk about Raw, SmackDown Live. And then I said I would do this on Saturday, but I gotta be honest. I think about Wednesday and how I don't watch WWE Network on Wednesdays. I'll start doing Raw versus Nitro. That's the first. No, I already said that. I'll do Raw versus Nitro. And I'll do that. I'll do the first one Saturday, but I'll do the second one Wednesday. And every time in these old shows that I do, when the pay-per-view is coming up at that time, I will be doing that on the pay-per-view podcast. Okay. Thank you. Goodbye.